Welcome to the Creative Resistance podcast, home to deep dive conversations with the artists, activists and thinkers who refuse to look away. Each episode sees me, Scott Cassidy, explore how guests are using their creativity to challenge injustice, build community and spark direct action to empower and affect change. In this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by a true artist who specialises in production, has incredible vocals, plays accordion, flute, synths and electronica, a stalwart of the Scottish music scene who is constantly breaking new creative ground to shine a light on the things that matter. Inge Thomson. Inge is a composer-producer whose interdisciplinary work draws on the environment via sound manipulation and the use of traditional instruments to create advanced contemporary audio landscapes. Long celebrated as a member of the Karine Polwart Trio, Inge is also a vibrant force within female and non-binary writing and production collective Hen Hoose. She's created acclaimed commissions for festivals such as Tectonics, HippFest and Counterflows, the latter awarding her a 3-block artist residency in Vietnam. Her ventures in screen sound include scores for the award-winning CBC animation Grape Soda in the Parking Lot and the BBCs Bafta winning Fair Isle, Living on the Edge. Inge and I delve deep into what creativity can look like when writing in response. We explore community, collaboration and the importance of artists lifting other artists. Inge's work is every bit as beautiful as she is ace. I hope you enjoy the conversation. A very warm welcome to episode number 3 and to the ever ace Inge Thomson. How are you doing, Inge?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Not at all. Thanks for joining us. It feels daft doing this when we're literally 5 minutes apart, but we're doing it online because of my tech inadequacies. But we're going to get that sorted, aren't we? We're going to get that sorted.
And also I don't think it's just that. I think there's lots of life things that keep us apart, Scott.
Definitely. And at least this way we know the recording will be safe. So yeah, huge thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it and ace to see you as always. So just get stuck straight in. One of the things that always occurs to me when I'm looking at other creative people is that it's easy to see them as kind of having landed fully formed with their kind of multi-instrumentalist and singing and ability to tell stories and everything else. But all of that stuff had to start somewhere. And I'm really keen to know a bit more about how that started for you.
Yes, so I certainly wasn't fully formed. But I did grow up in a really musical place, a really musical island, but also my family were always playing, always singing. It was just rather than it being kind of a hobby, it was a way of life. It was kind of essential way of life, really. So my parents, well, my dad was a singer and accordion player, and my elder brother was a fiddle player, my grandfather a fiddle player, and various aunts and uncles singing and playing guitars and things like that. So parties on Fair Isle always ended up with people singing and lots of people singing along and just learning the choruses to things. So it never really felt like it was, I'm going to choose to do this. This is just what happened kind of along the way. So
yeah. Was that the norm on Fair Isle for all families, or was that more specific to your family?
Well, I would say, given that my family took up about half the island, it really was quite universal. Yeah, very, very musical place anyway. Just, I think because when I was growing up, we didn't have electricity all the time. So you had to make your own entertainment. So it wasn't like we were always watching telly. I did spend a lot of time also girdling about in burns and going up and down banks and things like that, going out in boats with my dad. But when it came to kind of entertainment time, it just naturally seemed to turn to music. And yeah, it just never felt unusual. It never felt unusual to walk in someone's house and somebody would be sitting playing a fiddle, or someone would be sitting strumming a guitar or whatever. It was just quite a commonplace thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was not unique, I think, to Fair Isle, because I know loads of other islands and loads of other places, rural and urban, that there are communities that are like that.
Yeah, it's a beautifully sort of romantic image of the kind of barren island that's kind of remote and out there, and then this kind of incredible kind of musical community that pulls people together, and I'm guessing as well keeps tradition alive. Do you know what I mean? There's something in there, isn't there, about that kind of like baseline of people's hearts beating as well, and just keeping everything going.
It does keep traditions alive, but what I love about especially islands and very rural places, that actually the tradition, it has its own little ecosystem that it evolves in, so you can actually hear how different a tune is played in one place because it's been quite isolated and played amongst a particular group of people who have kind of helped influence the sound of that tune, or helped develop it, I guess. And yeah, it's kind of, you can see tradition, or you can hear it really quite, what's the word for it? It's like unique to different areas.
Almost like an accent, like a kind of local accent, but specific to music. I love that.
Yeah, yes, definitely like accents. And even some tunes are just played wrong, because that's just how they've been learned and taught on.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, oh, that's the version that they play over in Fettler. They've got the version that doesn't have a B part here, or, just things like that are actually really, really specific. It's like an accent, but you can follow it, follow the trail of it and be like,
Love that.
Okay, I think
Like
someone's
a
learned that
community-wide bad habit that goes back to one person that's played it wrong in the first place.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love that. And then what's the... So you had that like musical upbringing, which was community-wide. Now, what was the sort of transition to moving into doing that as a job?
Yeah, so when I left Fair Isle to go to the high school, which the school bairns still have to do when they're 11, I kind of got, well, actually it was a bit later. I was maybe about 15 when I started playing in bands, like school bands and like bands with my pals. So I kind of got the gig bug at that point. I just loved actually going out and playing gigs and playing in pubs and things like that. It was really exciting. And I would guess being, I have alopecia, for anyone that can't see me, but my hair started to fall out when I was about sort of 13, 14. And I think that playing in bands and being like parts of these very specific scenes made me cooler rather than not. It could have gone either way. When a teenager loses their hair and they're staying in a hostel or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it could have been really bad, but I think actually I managed to find like this community of alternative people anyway. And then suddenly it was like I was never really picked on for it at any point anyway, but I think having this kind of alternative, slightly cooler, edgier group of people that I was hanging about with, then nobody, everyone just kind of let me do my thing.
Yeah. So you went from the community of the island to another community of sort of musicians and kind of open-minded people that were out doing their thing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of my, that's part of my personality, is seeking out community and seeking out groups of people that make me feel safe and make me feel like I have a safety blanket around me. And also very lucky where I am in Path Head, because we've got a similar type of community of like-minded heads and people who will stop and help, if anyone needs help. And I think that's really important.
It's hugely important. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll chat about that a bit more shortly, definitely. One of the things that I've noticed, like with a lot of the work that you put out there, you've got your foot in sort of many different creative camps, but there's some like core themes that seem to run through. We've spoken about Fair Isle, and there's definitely the roots of your upbringing are really clear. In some of the work about environmentalism and ecology, then later on sort of feminism, gender equality, and the building of community, like we've spoken about. I'd love to know a bit more about how you tackle writing to a theme or writing to shine a light on a specific topic that matters to you. Thinking of you sort of work with the Fishing Hands and maybe the collaboration Sleeping Starfish.
Yeah, so that particular project, the Fishing Hands, there was a kind of greater cause behind that work from the first instance. So when I was initially applying for funding to write that, it was very, very specific. It's because we have this campaign for Fair Isle to become a marine protected area.
Wow.
That was, I mean, the islanders and communities had been campaigning for 20 years or something for this to happen. And a bit of background to that, it's really because of the complete decimation of some of the seabird species.
Wow.
And of course, Fair Isle being tourism, being one of its biggest economical incomes, and just the people are very, very protective of their land and love their sea. I think seeing these parts of it being really damaged, just made everybody feel like, right, we need to do something about this, and we need to be actually putting this into action. So so basically what happened was they were ramping up the campaign again. My father and Nick Riddiford from Fair Isle had an audience with the Scottish Parliament over it, and had been, it was kind of the same. It was the same story, the same dialogue that had been going on for a long time. And there was just a bit of like, we need to just change tack here somehow and get more people involved, get a little bit more public engagement. So this was, I guess, my response to that. So yeah, as for the creation of it, first of all, myself and my cousin Lisa, who was still with us and was absolutely integral to this project at the beginning, we went out and spoke to people, interviewed islanders, and just to get a sense of how connected people felt and their own individual ways of expressing it. And that, in the first instance, was really interesting because we actually gleaned quite a lot of beautiful material just from the chats, just from people's words. And there's a couple of songs actually that have just literally lifted verbatim things that certain interviewees have said.
Yeah.
And then we just wanted to make it an interesting project for us who are creating. So I brought in another part of the campaign earlier was my father and my sister-in-law creating a new set of maps, which were called fishing hands, which is where the project got its name. But these maps denoted the areas where you had good fishing. So around the island, you could find a spot that had good fishing grounds. But this information was going because the grounds were going, because people weren't getting good inshore fishing at all. But the way that you found out where you were on that spot, of course, because it's in the sea, is like you go out in a boat and you basically, it's like triangulation points where the hand or the ground sits, and you'd be like, oh, we're this far. So when this line in the rock at the side of this banks is lining up with a certain other landmark or whatever, and you start to see things come into alignment, then you know you've found the ground.
God, that's beautiful. That kind of, and that stuff must be so at risk of being lost.
Oh yeah, I mean it was being lost, which is why like my sister-in-law and my dad went to create this map, because they're like, some of these grounds are the information is going because it's all oral, it's all orally passed on, and people are just not going out. We need to, and the names of some of these grounds as well are amazing. They've all got like really interesting names, like Keelan Grund and like there's so many, but and the maps themselves look beautiful because they're all these outline of Fair Isle, some topographic lines, and then also all the triangulation lines, and it looks like a work of art. So the idea to create something using the maps as graphic score, I started with it, but it didn't last very long because all the melodies were like, so there was only so much of that could actually become listenable to music. But there's a few incidences over that period, that project, that you can identify where the melodies have come from, that because they're very sticky and very staccato and very spiky melodies.
I love that kind of playful experimentation as well. And did you get good buy-in from the community when you went to sort of speak to them about people? Were people up for what you were trying to achieve?
Yes, everybody was, because like in general, it's a very positive place. If anyone's doing anything, people want to be on board or like at least know what's going on. With some of the interviewees were a little more baffled about how this was going to become a piece of art.
Yeah.
and it was maybe a little more confusing as to like quite how we were going to bring it all together. But that in itself really offers you a whole pile of more interesting source material, because like when somebody's not entirely sure, then quite often their response and their expression can also be really interesting and give you a completely different angle, because the information that they're given to you, they're not seeing it as, oh, this is going to be turned into something. So you'll get a very true expression, or you get a very true account of their connection with the thing you're speaking about. And that makes for really interesting source material to work with. So yeah, but I would say people were definitely on board with it, because everyone was on board with the end game, the goal being for Fair Isle to become marine protected area.
And was that goal achieved? Is that?
It was, yes. I mean, it wasn't initially because that we didn't get just the MPA, the basic MPA, but we reapplied as a demonstration and research MPA, and we did get that. And the so far we've had the fishing limit in now since 20. Let me figure this out. We were awarded in 2016, and I think it was 2017 it went into effect. And so far, it's been quite an astounding change. And there have been a number of birds that have been doing a lot better because of the fishing situation. Sand eels have been recovered, and it sounds like that there's a report that's just gone out in the last couple of months, but it sounds like we might be like a specific site for flapper skate, because the flapper skate have been doing really well, and the amount of data and information about flapper skates and their habits and their behaviours has been really kind of beneficial, I guess, to the continual examination of their numbers, etc.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and they've been doing really well. So, yeah, it's ongoing, of course.
Yeah, sort of perpetual kind of thing. But I love the role that art has played in that, resonating in a way that sometimes political statements can't. So we're like, people are fed up filling out surveys and, being promised things that will never come to fruition. So actually seeing all of this evidence gathered to produce something concrete but beautiful, I think carries a lot of weight.
No, I agree. And I think that it should be used. I think art and artists should be used more in these kind of situations where like it's governmental, it's all like legislative, it's all like, and this is really dry. It's really dry dialogue, and there's a certain way of speak that people don't feel like they need to have some kind of academic qualification before they can engage even in this discussion. So bringing artists in can kind of bring the political things to the people in a way that actually is engaging and really good for gathering information and data. But also it's not horrible. It's like, it makes it
human, isn't it? It makes people's human, stories, yeah.
Absolutely. And makes people feel comfortable engaging with it, or feel more able to express honestly or express truly, because they're not feeling like they have to behave in a certain way because this is politics, or this is like I'm in a room with official people that are making me feel like I have to say something in a certain way, and then you might lose some truth in there.
Yeah, I love that. We've touched already on sort of collaboration, which I think it's fair to say is a sort of foundation stone of kind of folk, traditional, experimental music. I think the best of all of those things come when people work together. I know it's something you've done lots of. I'm keen to know more about how you find this, whether that's just as a band member, as I know you are in a few bands, with Karine Polwart, to name but a few, whether it's what you've done with Jenny Sturgeon on Northern Flyway. What do you think it is about collaboration that creates a specific type of magic?
Yes, so I love collaboration. I love what makes it create that magic? I think a true collaboration where you're listening to somebody else and you're like not just listening, but you're responding. So you have to listen really deeply, and have somebody else that is a musician that you respect and you admire, listening really deeply to what that's kind of amazing, because it makes you feel credible, and what you actually build from that is not like anything that you would build yourself necessarily. So I love it for those aspects, for the fact that you are going to create something that if I was sitting in my studio alone, I wouldn't make that. I would just not make that piece of work if I wasn't making it with somebody else. There's also, you have to make yourself quite vulnerable, because you truly collaborate. You have to kind of just really open yourself up. And I think this is just my personal opinion, but I think the best work comes from your vulnerabilities being out there. To me, it feels like the easiest thing to connect with as a listener is when somebody is just gone, you know.
Totally. Like genuine openness.
Genuine openness and collaborating. The best collaborations, I think, are when people are just genuine openness. I've just laid it all out there, and then people will respond, I think, in a more open way. Yeah, there's so many layers to this one. Totally. And I think the top being the feeling of credibility when other people are actually listening, and what an honour it is for them to respond to you with their own creativity. I think there's magic in that.
Definitely, that word respond is interesting as well, isn't it? Because I always think that in any art form, when you're creating something, inevitably it will mean something different to the consumer, to the reader, to the listener, to whatever, than it does to you as the creator, if you like. And I wonder, does that happen in microcosm when you're actually collaborating, so that you're producing something that speaks to you, but in real time, the collaborator is seeing it as something different? So I wonder if you then respond to them, and it speeds that whole process up, doesn't it? And creates something altogether different and magical all of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how a thing develops its own legs, because it's not, it's the sum of these things that you're making. Let's see if I can give you an example. Well, so I know you were wanting to speak about Hen Hoose at some point.
Yeah,
so this might link into that. But
yeah,
I made a piece of work with Beldina Odenyo, who we sadly lost a couple of years ago, through Hen Hoose, and the piece of work that we started making was so different. It was so far removed from the piece that we eventually produced. It was quite interesting to go and listen back to a timeline. So, I mean, it really just changed mood. It changed, just so many things changed. So keys changed and tempos changed, and then the structures changed, lyrics changed. I mean, it just ended up being its own animal, birthing out the other side from something that initially was just,
the two of you writing to a brief for that one, or was that just like real free flowing?
So we were writing to a brief. However, we went so far off that brief.
Love it.
We tried to stick to it to start off with, and then it was like, oh no, this is just going to be its own thing, because it was very, it was very honest, and I don't really know how to express it. It's quite a deep piece, but it was going to be what it was going to be.
Yeah, I think it's sort of self-created type thing. It would be really good, just as a seamless segue, actually, it'd be good to know more about Hen Hoose, actually. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about what Hen Hoose are and what they do?
Yep. So Hen Hoose is a collective of female and non-binary artists. It was set up during the lockdown, really, when Tamara Schlesinger, who's the founder of Hen Hoose, had been looking at some stats, and one of them was about music written for sync, which she had some experience in. But I think she was looking at it, it was like there's something like 11% were female of any sync artists. It was quite, for your listeners, sync is when a piece of music is used for something like television, or like
just about to ask,
is picked up for something television or radio content. But
that's a brutal statistic. 11%.
Yeah, it was very small. That might not be correct, so I should have fact checked before.
But small,
small,
disproportionately small, yeah.
And because we were in situations where we couldn't be in rooms together at that point. She enlisted a whole bunch of people from different genres, said, would you be up for a kind of online collaboration with somebody else? Just create, we'll give you a brief, just create something. There's like no guarantees that anything will get picked up, but it would be really good just to knock some heads together and also just connect a bunch of people. So ultimately it was really brilliant experience for me, and I learned a lot about production and also more about collaboration. But I guess I've gone a wee bit off track. What is Hen Hoose? So Hen Hoose continues as an organisation that supports women and non-binary artists to produce music, to push themselves into the world. There are now programmes and flock sessions and things for up and coming artists. These are like free and accessible. Put a lot of work into making these workshops and discussion sessions, panel sessions, like free to everybody. Get as many people from diverse backgrounds to come and speak and share. There's a bit of that ethos. If you can see it, you can be it as well.
Love that. Yeah.
Which I think is really important. But also just providing these opportunities for people to find their voice and find out how to get their voice heard. Because it's very hard if you don't come from a background of music industry, so you don't know how these things work. It's very hard to get started on them, know how to get your music out there.
Especially if there's barriers there before you even try. You know, or even not knowing that you can try, that it's something that's open to you. I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a lot of work in trying to cross over those barriers, or like get rid of those barriers rather, and have it as well represented and as well accessible as possible.
Definitely. Yeah, I first came across Hen Hoose. They co-curated an amazing festival that gutted is no longer running, Jupiter Rising out of Jupiter Artland, and I think it was like 2022. So that kind of post-pandemic festivals were becoming okay to go to again, and it was the most magical weekend. It was the first festival we'd taken the kids to, and there was some really well-known people from the Scottish music scene that were just playing in these tiny tents, and it was the most relaxed, family-friendly, kind of just wild in the best way sort of couple of days. It was great. Yeah, so I've kind of kept tabs on Hen Hoose and what they're up to since then. It just looks like it's a magical collaboration and sort of melting pot of people.
Yes, it certainly is that, and it's not exclusive. It's open, and basically Tamara is saying, come and join something. If you see something that you can actually get to, come and join it. Come and have a taster session of something. Yeah. So as many people as possible getting involved in it is a good thing and is a welcome thing. Yeah, which I think is lovely at not being an exclusive club.
And that collaboration stuff must feel really natural to you then, coming from that situation we described at the start of Farewell, where everyone's kind of picking up an instrument and doing their bit. That must be quite integral to your creative process, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's just kind of part of my character makeup. But I don't know whether that's like just I want to get involved in everybody's business. So it might make me a bit of a
musical
nosy,
gossip.
Yeah, a nosy neighbour. I want to try that. But yeah, I feel like it's really important in these musical circles to be, what's the word for it? Like non-competitive. So
yeah,
being
lift
involved,
each other up type thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's really, it's funny you saying that, because one of the tracks that I just did on the Hen Hoose residency with Carla J. Easton and Amanda Wilkinson and Frances McKee it's called Rich, but it's the chorus line is lift each other up, other up, and it's like, actually that's far, far more important, and you'll get much more done and much better work done if you are actually lifting each other up and empowering each other. Empowering somebody else empowers you.
Totally.
And I think that's I think when in areas where it's really competitive, it's like you're missing the trick here.
Missing the point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. And I think the people that do miss that, you can spot them quite quickly. If someone's in it and they're kind of pushing other people out of the way to do their thing, I think it's yeah, it's kind of at odds with the whole ethos, isn't it? Speaking about the collaboration thing, one thing I wanted to ask about as well was Northern Flyway. I was hoping to come down and see that when you were doing that live, and fascinated by that kind of exploration of ecology, folklore, and the symbolism of birds and birdsong. But one of the bits in that, correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but I think is that kind of light being shone on the parallels between avian and human migration. And it strikes me that right now, more than ever, that's more relevant. You know, like you look at the kind of sort of othering and the division that the powers that be are trying to put into place. Like, how do you see music's place within a culture that can feel so fragile?
Well, I think music has got a really important place in there. How I see it being like a comfort tool, and a glue and a means of trying to pass on, I guess, emotional information, but without it being too painful. I think, I don't know, that's an interesting one to go to, because today it's even more relevant, this Songs About Migration, than it was back in 2017 when we started that project. And this was something that at that point I really needed to move away from writing songs about war. Basically, it was the drone attacks in Syria, the bombing of Syria was going on at the time, and that was, I guess, the kind of the beginning of all that. There was all Brexit stuff, and all the images of people, the swarms of people, and now today we're like, oh, the boats, and all. Yeah. I think, I don't know if I can say this on your podcast, but that it's just bullshit.
Yeah,
and
of course you can. Say whatever you like.
So all of that, we're being bombarded with this, and the kind of extremists are beginning to formalize themselves, and wonderful, all that social engineering of making everybody think that their lives are a bit shit, and that's the reason why their lives are shit.
Blame the other person.
Absolutely.
Blame that person.
It's like, it's these people that are coming on boats, and some of them are not even making it, they're drowning, and I think it's really disgusting. So Northern Flyway was like, at that point, it was just like, this is going to be so gentle, and I'm going to bring a lot of the things that I love back into my life. And it was Jenny Sturgeon's idea initially for us to have this collaboration. And Jenny is a bird ecologist and very knowledgeable and very passionate, and it comes into all of her work, the environment. So it seemed like this is going to be something that is going to soothe my heart a bit, and it's going to be beautiful. And we didn't really expect it to become political, but it's there, it's there everywhere. So when studying migrations and migration patterns, it's very, very easy to draw those comparisons between humans migrating and birds migrating. Just ultimately, every species wants the best for its children. Totally. So it's like every animal, and we are animals, really believe there's not that big difference between humans and nature. I think it's really weird. People say like, "Oh, I'm reconnecting with nature."
I'm going out into nature.
Yeah, we are nature.
Totally.
We are nature. So yeah, it was obviously a kind of underlying an undercurrent to that project as well. Was what was going on in the world.
Yeah, and a truth that's kind of becoming more true kind of as time rumbles on. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right to call out the bullshit that is kind of being spun our way just now, and it's quite terrifying how mainstream those extremists are becoming, isn't it? So I think now more than ever there's a place for art and sort of resistance and everything else to actually make a point of saying, do you know what, we're not in this kind of as individuals, but collectively we can make a stance against it. I think it's so important.
Yeah, and I think you can do that without writing. I mean, politics can happen subtly, and I think actually some of the absorbed changes happen subtly rather than like a big fight or a big protest, which I'm also for, don't get me wrong, but they experience a kickback quite often as severe as the one that you're as the party. So if you are subtly making points that might get absorbed without to feel the need for the listener to dig heels in, then I think that's really good. I mean, it's playing a long game, but I think it's an important way of absorbing the feeling of a community, of a society.
Yeah.
That maybe goes back to answer your early question about where's music's place in this. I think it's also like an awareness builder of how people are feeling.
Definitely, and I think the other thing that music has as well is that there's different genres and different styles for everyone. You know, not everyone's going to respond to kind of the latest kneecap track that's kind of tackling this stuff head on. And for some people, it does need to be more gentle, more subtle, more beautiful. And I think there's beauty in what kneecap do as well, by the way, just to get that out there. But I think there's nuance, isn't there, that for some people, they need to actually just see something and be able to zoom out a little bit, which I think is huge. Definitely. Speaking about the birds and migration stuff, I'd just like to finish by touching on a project you did that I think is Fight, Flight, Freeze and Fawn. Is that a project that was about sort of trauma response? I'd love to know more about that. I've worked in kind of mental health in the past, and yeah, I've got an interest in this. So yeah, can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, I was interested in that. For every action, there is a equal and how does that phrase go? For every action, there's an equal and
I can't remember
and opposite reaction.
Yes, that's the one.
And I thought musically that could be really interesting. I don't know how it's going to take form. I've got no idea. So anyway, I started with that, and then I was like, I actually need the subjects to be a little bit more specific, because like I was literally thinking, am I going to go out with a big stick and just bang it against something and see what else happens? You know, so it was just a little bit too obtuse how that project started. So I was thinking about this and people's reactions to trauma and different types of trauma. So like, say you just got smacked in the face, like how do you respond to that? Or if there's something massive emotional that happens to you, how do you respond to that? So it was more like, okay, I'm going to look at how neurologically people respond to these. And these are the fight, flight, freeze and fawn. They're like the response mechanisms that humans have to whatever traumas or impacts. So again, it kind of did a similar thing to what I'd done with the fishing hands, and interviewed a few different people just because everyone's got a slightly different idea of what you're asking. And that also made for an interesting source material, because there was all these different angles. And with this one, I was quite keen to keep the questions really simple so that the answers could be short. And some of them, you know, it was like, if you can, and if it's not triggering, can you describe what your actual body, what you felt like, what your body felt like, what did you feel in your body when these things happened, or whatever. And got some really interesting replies. But obviously I couldn't just use these people's voices. So I did use manipulation, and there's some voices in where you can actually hear the words and some that you can't, but I'd just taken some of that material and turned it into songs. And then with some of it, the actual vocal manipulations became the bed for the instrumentals over the top of it. And I also had two amazing singers, Emily Boyd and Caris Crosby, and I had them some parts that were actually scored out, but then these blocks where like, I just want you to improvise through this section in response to what you have heard or what you are hearing. And that, it made for a really interesting gig, because like there's no way that any two gigs would be the same.
Yeah. I love that kind of call and response sort of set up to telling stories. There's something that takes us right back to the kind of earliest forms of storytelling in that, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a conversation, isn't it? Rather than even just a storytelling. When that's happening, it's not just relaying one event. It's like actually getting other people's input into it, other people's feelings into it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
So I'm not quite sure if I really answered that question.
Yeah, no, you did. I think that was a really great sort of sum up of what it was. And I think it sounds like something that would have been incredibly powerful, and not the same if you saw it twice. You know, it'd be different every time.
Yeah,
which of course everyone's response to trauma is. You know, it's all different. So amazing. What's next for you? What are you working on just now?
Well, so yesterday I was listening to the final and doing final tweaks on the Birdvox album. And Birdvox is the development, I guess, the next project on from Northern Flyway.
Oh, okay.
It's a more synth pop kind of band. There is Jenny Sturgeon, Sarah Hayes, Charlotte Printer, and myself in that band. And so we've just recorded an album, so that's going to be coming out early next year. And then what else is next for me? I'm going to be making, I'm not quite sure how this work is going to take form, but from my residency in Vietnam with Counterflows, I'm going to be putting together some audio for release next spring, I think. So a lot of my next week will be listening through to field recordings and recordings of things that I've done so far, and then forming a piece of work from that. And then I'm at the end of this month, I'm away with the Rugged Island, the silent film score again.
Oh, wow.
So I've got plenty to do.
Yeah, lots going on, definitely. And if people want to find out more about what you've got going on, what's best? Is it your website? Is it social media? What's the best place for people to go?
So I would say probably my Facebook or Instagram page, although I'm really not very good at being... I'm not a good self-marketer, put it that way. I do have a website where you can see previous projects, but I'm not very good at updating that either.
I'll stick links into all of those into the show notes and when we do, but I'd say a huge thank you. That's been a really beautiful conversation and amazing to find out like just the huge array of different things that you've worked on and are currently working on. And maybe when these projects come out next year, we can have another natter and dig into those too.
That would be lovely. Thanks so much for having me, Scott.
Amazing. Cheers, Inge.